In 2025, Global Airlines once again captured the attention of the aviation world with its bold attempt to revive the Airbus A380 in regular commercial service. The airline, founded by British entrepreneur James Asquith, had positioned itself as something completely different, a carrier that would embrace the size, comfort, and glamour of the super jumbo when nearly every other airline had already retired or reduced the type. The plan was simple on paper but daring in reality. Global wanted to operate transatlantic services from the United Kingdom to New York with its own A380s, bringing back a sense of luxury to flying and proving that the world's largest passenger aircraft still had a future. The airline acquired a used A380, registered 9H Global, and announced grand ideas for its cabins, including premium spaces, an onboard bar sometimes promoted as a sky pub, and a product that would stand out in a market often dominated by efficiency and cost-cutting. By choosing to bet everything on the A380, Global signaled that it was aiming for publicity and uniqueness, not just another low-cost entry into an already crowded transatlantic market. The company's marketing generated excitement, and in May 2025, the first passenger flights were finally launched. Global's initial services connected Glasgow to New York, operated in partnership with Hi-Fly, since Global did not yet have all of the necessary certifications for independent operations. The maiden flights attracted media attention, but the reality quickly became apparent. Demand was modest, and many of the services flew with passenger numbers far below the A380's full capacity. Only a small handful of rotations were completed between Scotland and the United States before the problems began to pile up. High operating costs, complex logistics, and regulatory hurdles all caught up with the fledgling carrier. After just 2 round trips, the A380 was ferried to Tarbes in southern France, a site known for aircraft storage and maintenance. Images of the Global Airlines jet parked there spread quickly online, fueling speculation that the experiment was already over. Global Airlines insisted this was not the case. The company stressed that the aircraft was in Tarbes for maintenance and that it had no intention of abandoning the project. Official statements described much of the negative press coverage as exaggerated or misleading. Nevertheless, analysts and industry observers were quick to point out the structural difficulties the airline faced. Operating an A380 is extremely expensive. Fuel consumption, maintenance complexity, spare parts, and ground handling all require resources far beyond those of smaller jets. In addition, the economics of long-haul flying with such a large aircraft demand consistently high load factors, something Global struggled to achieve in its very short launch window. Even legacy carriers with established networks have found it hard to justify the A380 in today's competitive environment, making Global's gamble especially risky. As of late 2025, the situation remains uncertain. The aircraft is still parked in Tarbes, and while Global continues to emphasize that it is not permanently retired, there is no clear timeline for resuming operations. Some insiders suggest the airline could attempt to pivot towards a different business model, perhaps leasing the A380 out for charter or ACMI operations rather than scheduled services. Others speculate that Global may be forced to diversify into smaller, more manageable aircraft if it hopes to survive. The challenge for Global is not just financial but also reputational. Launching with such fanfare only to suspend services almost immediately risks eroding customer trust, and rebuilding credibility in aviation is notoriously difficult. Whether Global Airlines will return to the skies depends on several critical factors. The first is access to sufficient capital. Keeping an A380 maintained and airworthy while it sits idle is extremely costly, and without significant funding the project cannot continue. The second is regulatory progress. For the airline to operate under its own certificate rather than relying on partners, it must satisfy a long list of requirements from aviation authorities. Third, there is the question of strategy. Does Global continue to pursue the A380 dream, hoping for better luck with marketing and load factors, or does it scale back to smaller aircraft more suited to building a sustainable network? Finally, the airline must face market realities. Competition across the North Atlantic is intense, with both legacy carriers and low-cost entrants offering abundant capacity and competitive fares. To stand out, Global would need either an unmistakable product advantage or a dramatic drop in costs. For now, Global Airlines exists in a state of limbo, somewhere between ambition and reality. The bold experiment of bringing the A380 back into regular passenger service has not yet succeeded, but the story is not completely over. If the company can secure new funding, rethink its model, and solve the maintenance and regulatory puzzles, a return to the skies remains possible. On the other hand, If these hurdles prove insurmountable, the airline may simply fade into history as yet another example of how difficult it is to disrupt commercial aviation. Either way, Global Airlines has provided a fascinating case study of the risks and challenges involved in reviving an aircraft that, while beloved by passengers, was retired by most of its operators for solid economic reasons. The future of Global remains unwritten, but the lesson so far is clear. In today's leaner, efficiency-driven industry, even the most spectacular aircraft must still prove their value on the balance sheet as well as in the headlines.